Remember the Greek warrior hero Achilles? No matter how exceptional he was, his heel is really what people remember him for. So let's explore today what might have been the story behind his heels. Well, actually, the writer of Iliad and Odyssey, Homer himself, may not have been one person. It is more likely that the concept of Achilles represents a group of people with different attributes that over time has just collapsed into one individual for simplicity and for people to buy into the stories. According to the myth, Achilles is half a human, half a god. So even though he was born with all the weaknesses of a human being, his mom seems to keep intervening and blessing him with special supernatural powers. So Achilles' mom dipped Achilles when he was a baby into a holy river to make him immortal. And she just got interrupted or somehow forgot to dip his ankle in. So that was his only vulnerability. Another interesting thing about the storyline is that even though Achilles was very powerful and a great warrior, he was not super invested in this war. It took some convincing from his mother, who said he has two options, like either do nothing and live where he is and he would live till old age and die eventually, or he could go to this war and show off his prowess and become famous for centuries to come. Achilles took the two options and merged them together into something that served his interests the best. He kind of did go on to the war. However, he decided that he was not really interested in actually fighting. So he was part of the army, but for most parts, he was not very actively engaged. The other interesting thing about the story is that even though he was technically immortal, it was also prophesied that when he does go into this war, he will die in the war. By the way, even though it was known that he will die in the war, it wasn't really very well established that Achilles had a vulnerability in his ankle. It really wasn't known before he actually got hit in his ankle and died in that way. So it really is a lot of mixed messaging about whether he is immortal or he is not immortal, and if he was a real person, he would be quite confused by his mortality status. So I believe this is how, generally speaking, people were conscripted into armies in those times. The messaging being that you can choose to not join the army and eventually you'll die and nobody will remember you. However, if you come along, then you can show your glory and people will remember you. It would have been difficult otherwise to motivate a person to just give up their stable life and go join the army. Definitely with the view that they will die in that war, where the war is not even at their doorstep, it's happening somewhere else. How else would you get an army together and get them to follow you? It was completely a stupid war, which was triggered by some stupidity of Paris, who was the Prince of Troy, to come all the way and abduct Helen. We will get into maybe in another episode about the stupidity of Paris and Helen. But coming back to Achilles, he decided to go to the war and play it anyways neutral by not engaging in it very much, up until his friend got killed in the war. Now, when you and your friend go into a war, it is kind of expected that one day one or the other of you will probably die. So I don't know why that came as a major surprise to Achilles. But again, it probably just goes to indicate the general vibe and motivation levels of the whole army. They probably just put their energy into it when they saw their friends and comrades actually getting killed. So coming to Achilles' heel, it also probably goes to illustrate the weak point of the army in general. If the story is based on historical facts, then this war is believed to have happened in the 12th to 13th century BC. There seems to be a real city that archaeologists have found, which lines up with the timelines and description of this place, described as Troy. So looking back at how the soldiers would protect themselves in a battlefield in those times, they would have focused on the more vital parts of their body and covered their head with a helmet and their torso with an armor and maybe their legs with some kind of protective covering. But they would have had to stay somewhat light on their feet and could not have bogged their feet down with any heavy armor kind of a boot. So as far as a war strategy goes, it would make sense to aim for the feet, because why would you want an arrow to just bounce off the soldier instead of actually making some damage? So once you have got a person in their feet, especially even better if the arrow was poisonous, that will eventually kill them, or at least you would have disabled them for a while to be able to attack them in some more effective way. So long story short, Achilles, who is probably a representation of a collective group of people got dragged into the war against their general will. They got into it somewhat half-heartedly, but they were pretty well trained and they actually could fight when they wanted to. And the only way to make them stop was to kind of aim at their feet. I don't know if Achilles, the real half-god, would have been too pleased to be known for his ankle through centuries, but hey, that's kind of what happened. So see you all next time, and bye for now.